Hey, and welcome back to the number one podcast in the world, the Cellarcast, episode 193. I was just thinking while I was making my breakfast today about wine. So sometimes I wonder about how certain things came to be. Like, how did certain things get invented? Who came up with this? How did that go? And wine is one of those things that is so old, it's probably prehistoric. And I have to believe that wine was a mistake. I can't imagine anyone, you can't just assume that if you leave something out that it'll, every other thing in nature, every other food, when you leave it out too long, it goes bad. And there's flies and shit around it, or mosquitoes lay eggs in it or something like that. It's bad. It's like an almost universally bad thing, except for this one thing, and I can't believe that people came up with that on purpose. That must have been someone probably ate some grapes. We have grapes in the house. That's why I was thinking about this. We have grapes in the house, and I was like, man, this is so good. I love grapes. And I could imagine someone in prehistoric times thinking, man, the juice is so good. We should just crush it up and bottle it. And then they stored it in a certain condition for too long, and they were like, oh fuck, it like smells weird. All right, I mean, why not? Let's just drink it. And then they kind of liked it. It had to have been an accident. Just, oh wait, how long have we been leaving that stuff out? In a time before refrigeration, if humans were put on this earth with the refrigerating technology, we would never have wine. I can assure you. Another thing is origami. When we were in the 4th grade, we had like a little origami unit in my, whatever my class was. I don't remember. We were reading a book about a girl who gets cancer and in Japan, and her friends make a bunch of origami cranes for her. And I as part of that, we were doing origami. We were learning about origami, and I remember making my first shitty origami crane and thinking, wow, the Tokugawa empire must have been boring as shit. They must have been, how bored do you have to be to sit around and come up with origami? If they had Subway Surfers in the Tokugawa period of Japan, the Tokugawa, what was it, a dynasty? I don't know. Let's get educated. Tokugawa. The Tokugawa shogunate. I promise you, if you want to significantly alter history, if you want to wreck the timeline, don't go back and step on a fly or anything like that. Don't just give someone a phone with Subway Surfers. Give Thomas Edison Subway Surfers. Actually, maybe if he did that, Tesla would have gotten all the credit. We might have lived in a better world. Slightly. I don't know. There's some of those, I think cookies were invented on accident. Something like that. It was like some lady was trying to bake a cake. She fucked up. Something like that. Anyway, we didn't have any questions last time, so that's what was on the brain. I want to go over a little bit of gaming news that caught my attention, because I think it's pretty funny. From a detached third-person perspective. I'm not happy. I think if I had to deal with it, I'd be very unhappy. This comes from The Gamer, everyone's favorite news outlet. Wait, hang on. Does this link to... This just links back to a Business Insider post. Alright, let's just read from that. Well, it's a very long Business Insider post, but it's kind of summed up in this The Gamer article. Essentially, EA has been forcing a bunch of AI tools on their developers, and it is going so poorly that they have to hire a bunch of people to fix the mistakes, which is actually more costly than just paying the developers originally. So there's this whole article from Business Insider that I'm now just skimming with my eyes, as opposed to my nose, I guess. Which opens up with this incredible anecdote about the Electronic Arts work Slack, which is just making fun of the CEO for being super into AI. A cartoon man asking a trio of CEOs what they want. It's that classic meme. They answer in unison, AI. The man asks, AI to do what? The CEOs reply, we don't know. The man follows, when do we want it? The CEOs cheer again, right now. Dozens of the video game company's staff responded with crying, laughing emojis. The original article is by Sarah E. Needleman. Oh my god, she needs to get in Mega Man 3. Get back on your shift, Sarah. So apparently EA has been using this generative AI tool called Reef GPT so that they can to vibe code on their games. But it keeps fucking up and adding bad code or the incorrect code to different parts of the project. So then developers have to get paid to just be like emergency responders. This is a consistent problem with AI in creative fields or things like this. I guess you could call coding a creative field. I don't know if a lot of coders would call it that, but you could. Where you let go a bunch of people to shift towards AI to do everything, and then the AI is so imperfect and cannot self-regulate and cannot really... I don't know if you can train this shit out of it, but you then have to hire people back to fix the bad work that the algorithm did. And this, they had that horrible, like, demo that they did a while ago where they were like, look, the AI can come up with ideas for a video game, and it's like just the most nonsense, bullshit, just nonsense bullshit. There was a similar skeet on the blues on the Skeet Sky about this. I don't know if it's the same technology, but it's like a video that some tech guy posted that was like, AI games will change the future. And if you watch the video, it is like a cavalcade of nonsense. It's like a first person sort of game that's kind of like a choose your own adventure deal where it's like some military setting and the camera is running through a city. And there's, like, gunfire sometimes, and there's, like, explosions sometimes, and it'll be, like, click on these 3 things, and it instantly selects one of 3, like, garbled nonsense prompts at the bottom, like choices. And then suddenly a subway car, an entire subway car will slide in from around the street corner, and you'll walk in, and it's just... It's really weird. I get a weird feeling watching those videos that go on for a while. It's very dream-like in a disconcerting way. There's like this freely associative range of ideas and imagery that just things will just slide into place, ignoring perspective or foreshortening. They will just be there, and your brain can hardly keep up with it. It's almost like hypnotic, key jangling nonsense. It's so weird to watch. And I reposted that, I quote skeeted it, as they say, or queeted. I queefed it. And I said, close enough. Welcome back, Digital Pictures. Because I really think that the type of person who responds positively to a video like that is like the CEO of Digital Pictures. If you guys don't remember, I made a video a while back on Make My Video, which was a series of 3 games released on the Sega CD by Digital Pictures, which was a developer who are most well known for doing all of those. Honestly, tanking the Sega CD. Just so much stupid derivative crap. That like maybe FMV could have gotten off on a better foot with people, but their output was not. It didn't leave a good impression. And one of the things that I found really interesting when reading through interviews with the company's CEO, whose name I don't remember, was that he kept the way that he talked about games and just stuff in general was like he had a very adult vocabulary. Like he was fairly well spoken and he was, clearly an adult man. But the inner working, like his ability to understand fiction was childlike. It reminded me of, what is it? There's like an Alan Moore quote or something like, I don't remember who it is. They'll be like, it's something along the lines of how children will read a Batman comic and they'll be like, whoa, Batman's doing stuff. Cool stuff. And an adult will read a Batman comic and go, but how does he service the tires? Does he ever need to get a mechanic in there? Who does that? And about how that's like and then it ends with, who the fuck cares, dude? It's a story. That's not the point. Who gives a shit? And it reminded me, the way he talked reminded me of that, because it was like, almost like I don't even think he would have been able to understand or connect with an animation, like a cartoon or something. Like he lacked some sort of basic suspension of disbelief to be able to look at anything that wasn't literal real life on camera, on screen, and like make a connection with it. Like he needed the way it was so extreme too. Like, think about the most intense game you've ever played that like really got your heart pumping and really made you focus up and have to pay attention, and it was really high octane, right? This guy basically just, I don't think he could have that experience with whatever game you're thinking of. But then he talks about like Sunday Quarterback, which was their first-person POV football FMV game where they just they put a camera on like a football player's helmet and you had to like make the plays or whatever from first person. And the way he's talking about it, he's like, yeah, I saw it and it like scared the shit out of me. I felt like I was gonna, like, I saw the guy coming at me and I thought I was gonna die. And I'm reading this like, this guy is like he is like an infant. He has like an infant's mind. He can't. Whoa! and it's a Sega CD FMV game. So obviously, like the picture, it's not even the full length of your television. It's cropped into a little box because the resolution is so tiny. That's what these AI guys remind me of. Like you could show them anything and they'll go, whoa, whoa. It's like this, I don't even know. It's like they aren't even able to penetrate the surface of a piece of art. Does that make sense? And that's a weird perspective. I've become a lot more aware of the concept of really what literacy is. Like literacy, when we're talking about linguistic literacy. I don't know if there's another term for it. I saw this video the other day about this study that there are like so many people in the US who are functionally illiterate. And the study isn't actually backed up. And it was something like 30% of adults are functionally illiterate. That study was like, well, it's not even a study. It's just like some random company's webpage that they don't cite. and the creator of the video couldn't find anything that backed that up. So that stat is probably bullshit. But there was it then jumped into a deeper discussion of what it actually means to be literate. And it's not exactly what you think. Usually we just think, oh, it means you can read. But what is it specifically? Like, what does it mean? It's not just reading. Like, there are multiple levels of literacy. There's phonetics, such as you can look at letters and you know the sounds the letters can make and maybe how they go together, like a TH makes a th sound. And then, okay, you can put those letters together into chunks, and then you can sound out those chunks and you can read words. Then it's knowing what the words mean. And then it's knowing what two words mean together. And then it's knowing what words mean in a sentence. And then you add in like different punctuations and more complex sentences. And then it's what multiple sentences mean in a paragraph. And it's this, and then like how other paragraphs relate to each other that are close together about like, is this the same topic? Is this a different thing? If they're about the same topic, how do you know that? How do you make connections between multiple paragraphs? How do you make them across an entire book? Literacy is basically how well you can take concepts and connect them to each other, make connections, and how widely you can apply that. What is the widest breadth that you can apply your understanding to? Can you actually read an entire book and understand what happens in it, what it means, why it happened, and be able to crunch that down into some sort of an analysis, like a simple theme statement? And these are just like, skills that we try to teach children. Like, children can do it. And a lot of people never get past a certain level of that. They never get past a certain, like, you can show them something and they can understand a sentence, and they can generally understand sentences like strung together, but they really cannot make connections between broader ideas. And in some level, those people are functionally illiterate. I run into that with my YouTube comments. I've been getting these... Okay, so, the Rogue Warrior video is the video that keeps on giving, because for as many nice comments I get, and you know what? The majority of the comments on that video are very flattering, which is great, because it feeds my ego. But, man, once you have that many views on a video, you start getting some real specimens in your comments section. Multiple, like... I keep a folder on my phone of screenshots, just screenshots of funny comments. And let me tell you, there are multiple guys that are now like legends within my friend group of, oh my god, that guy. He commented again. He's still going at it in the replies. And one thing that I've been dealing with recently on the Rogue Warrior video is a weird complaint. Literally this morning, I opened my phone and I got a comment that said, this is a good video, but I think you really failed to distinguish between reality and fiction. I couldn't tell which was which most of the time. And I just read that, and I reread it a couple times just to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding it, because I cannot even begin to imagine what was confusing about that video. Like, I can't even step for a moment into this person's shoes. The game is obviously fictional. It's a video game. The book is his autobiography, which, now mind you, there are definitely some fake stories in there, but for the purposes of the analysis, I basically took the whole book in good faith. That this is, at the very least, how he chose to represent himself. This is how he chose to write about himself and his life and his experiences. I didn't have to go digging to expose his lies or things that he did. There was a little bit, I guess, with like the red cell stuff that he neglected to mention, and some of the court case stuff. But for the vast majority of the video, I am just telling you what he wants you to know about him. He proudly published the book where he goes, yeah, I basically just like participated in sex trafficking in Cambodia. It was fucking awesome. I loved having sex with those slave girls. It was so sick how they had no say in that at all. Like, it was so awesome how I cheated on my wife. Oh god. So I don't understand how you could watch that and be like, wait, was that fake? I also said pretty clearly at the start of the video, he did military service, got discharged, and then wrote an autobiography, and afterwards wrote a series of fictional books starring himself. And I am talking about the autobiography, like I am showing pictures from his life, like from his military service in Vietnam. I don't understand how you could be confused. And there's a scary number of people out there in the world just like that, who cannot make connections between like pieces of information. They just can't connect them. It freaks me out a little bit. Anyway, I did a stream a little while, like about a week ago. It's one of my perennial Steam Next Fest streams. Unfortunately, I had to cut it short because of something I guess I'll talk about afterwards. I had an event lined up that just like, the timing, the way everything lined up timing wise was unfortunate. So I only managed to get through half of the demos that I installed, but I would like to talk about them because I think that they were all, fortunately, pretty neat. So the first game is called Bootsies. Oh, and by the way, all these are going to be linked down in the description below, probably where I put sources, if you want to check them out. So the first demo that I played was called Bootsies. It was a really charming little fighting game that reminded me a lot. Hang on. Oh man, I was thinking about it during the stream. I should have looked this up beforehand. It's this super unique fighting game from the 90s, I want to say. It's like a 3D fighter. I think I saw a video about it. It was like the most unique fighting game ever. Fighter's Destiny, that's what it's called. Yeah, this is a great video by Hollowshy. Check that out. It reminded me a lot of Fighter's Destiny, which was a fighting game that took a very different approach to its win condition that actually changed, I feel dramatically changed the, what do you call it? The flow of the gameplay and kind of what the strategies are, what the game revolves around. It doesn't have traditional life bars. Instead, the goal, and this is the same with Bootsies, is to knock the opponent off of the stage. Bootsies is a 2D fighter where you just have a completely flat plane with ledges on the other side, Smash style. One neat thing is that as the round goes on, the platforms start getting shorter to add more pressure to it, which is a cool mechanic. But specifically, the thing that they ripped from Fighter's Destiny that's super cool is this, I guess I call it the points system. Essentially, you do not win when you knock the opponent out. You win like a round, but you don't win the game based off of like, oh, I won 2 out of 3 rounds. You know, I was the first person to win 2 rounds. Instead, you have to score points or stars, as they're represented, and you can get more stars by winning in different ways. So I think Fighter's Destiny has like 7 different winning conditions based off of how you knock out the opponent that give different levels of stars. Bootsies also has like 4 or 5 things that you can do. The main control of the game, the reason it's called Bootsies is the characters are these cute little duck characters, and they all wear big old boots, and the game is mainly just kick-based. I guess that's how a duck would fight. sort of. They just kick. The controls are very simple. It's like a 3-button fighter, and one of the buttons is just to walk backwards. There's like a light. Oh, sorry. No, yeah, it is a 3-button, 4-button, I guess. There's a walk backwards button because you automatically walk forwards. The walk backwards button is also your block button, which is kind of interesting. There's a light attack and a heavy attack. And depending on what your input is, either if you're moving forward or backwards, they will do different things. There's also a little bit of pushback when you block an opponent's attack, which you can KO someone with, which is pretty neat. And one of the heavy attacks is an awesome suplex. It feels so good. The game's graphics are very simple. It's got a pretty charming little aesthetic. A little bit, how would I call it? It's a bit of a mishmash, but everything is consistently retro styled. Like all the sprites are really simple, 2 or 3 color sprites. The backgrounds are 3D, but they've got it's like a PS1 look to it, where the textures are really crunchy and everything's very polygonal. It's got a neat, it's a neat aesthetic. Very charming game to look at. And there's a number of characters with apparently different movesets. They have supers. You can earn a super by, like, what was it? You can gain a super if you've got, I forget what it is. Oh, you had to get like a certain resource by knocking someone off a certain way or something like that. But man, that suplex animation, for how simple the graphics are, they nailed that. It feels amazing. And yeah, it's a short demo. It only offers 2 characters with different super choices, and it's got, I think there's like 10 for the full release, which is neat. And it's other than that, it's got like an arcade mode to play through, and it's simple but neat little game. I liked it. I like that someone's taking influence from Fighter's Destiny. Next was a game called Odd Town. This is a bit like a funky, it's like a, hang on. Let me find the guy's name. I'm so bad with people. It's like a Wes Anderson GTA. That's the best way I can describe it. The main character gets, they're driving through the French countryside when their car breaks down outside of a little town, an odd town, and you need to get it repaired. Very quickly, while you're walking around this pretty small town, you get a phone call at a public phone from someone who tells you that something nefarious and strange is going on, and you need to meet him at his apartment. And he then tells you that there's some kind of weird conspiracy happening at the city hall, and you've got to recruit these 3 characters to help you do some kind of a big, I guess, heist or something like that. This game also has a very PS1 art style. I know it's hard to, no, it's not quite that. It's the character models are relatively detailed, although they've got some stylization to them, but the textures are deliberately crunchy. They're deliberately low res and a little messy looking. Which is, I guess, a little bit like, it's a little mouth-washing, you might say. Wait, hang on. It really reminds me of this one animator who used to do, like, Castle Super Beast animations. What was the Remorai. Yeah, there's this YouTuber named Remorai who they do the same, like, 3D models with sort of simple stylized proportions that are very charming. I unfortunately didn't get to play, so the rules of the Next Fest streams are, I set a timer for myself so that we can get through demos at a decent clip. And it adds a little metagame aspect to it. Unfortunately, because I was on such short of a time frame, I had to, instead of my usual 30-minute timer, I had to go with a 20-minute timer. So I feel like that kind of did, again, the conditions, did a bit of a disservice to the game. So I don't think I really got to see the neat stuff, but I can definitely tell that it's got a lot of heart put into it. Oh, that sounds a little derogatory. I don't like saying that something has a lot of heart. That's like a nice way to say that it's bad, but you don't want to be mean about it. I really do mean that it seems like it has something kind of neat and quirky going on, and there's some fun little gameplay details, like you basically, like, you have to do crimes. And there are always police officers walking around the city. So there's a whole sort of GTA wanted system once you get caught, or once you're once they're on to you. So I got caught and put in jail a couple times, and every single toilet in the game has like a piece of feces in it, and you can pick it up and throw it, and then like a second later your character starts throwing up because it was so gross. You have to keep finding new ways to get out of jail every time you get locked up, which is kind of a fun twist. And yeah, I don't know. It seemed like a neat, quirky game. I would if the phrase Wes Anderson GTA intrigues you at all, I would check it out. Then for a pretty simple game called Revol Gear Zero, this was just a 2D side-scrolling shooter that has a little bullet heli element to it. Many of the mechanics were familiar to me as someone who has played a decent chunk of a decent number of Toho games at the very least. I like the bullet hell genre, although I don't play too many of them, but every time I play one, I enjoy it. Yeah, it was just a pretty straightforward thing of its genre entry in this style of game, where you've got a little side-scrolling ship and enemies come out and they shoot 1,000,000 bullets, and you can absorb some of the bullets with these little option things that you've got that float around your ship and give you alternate fires. Also has a cute little 16-bit look to it. It's like it feels like a game that never left Japan on the Super Nintendo. It's got that kind of a vibe going on. The demo was very short. It was 2 levels, so I only got to see so much of the game, but cool. I liked it. And then finally, the last one I played was called Vital Shell, which I would probably say is closest to a Vampire Survivors type game. I don't know, what are we calling? Are we calling them Bullet Heavens? I tend to shy away from titles, like genre titles, that are highly context, like that require a lot of context. That's one of the reasons I don't like Metroidvania as a genre descriptor. But I just think Bullet Heaven sounds cool. So maybe if the name sounds cool enough, I'll make a concession. Anyway, Vital Shell is another. Honestly, okay, we were playing it. I called it a PS1 look. I guess running theme with the games that I'm talking about this in this segment. It just, I don't know. That's just how it came out. I called it PS1, but specifically someone in chat later described it as Net Yorose, which is so... That's the level of specificity that I needed. If anyone... I think my second video? One of my first 5 videos is on a Net Yorose game that went unreleased for 20 years. If anyone doesn't know, the Net Yorose was a PS1 developer kit that you could buy. You could just buy a machine, like a mini PS1, for development. I don't know if it was mini. It might have been larger. Specifically for developing games on. It was called the Net Yorose, and I believe that the net part was because it had some online connectivity. And it was a very short-lived experiment, but a really cool instance of early, like, accessible console development. Oh my god. Typically, I had to close my window because my dad labor was buzzsawing. There's like 4 houses being built all the time on my block. I don't know. California real estate value, am I right? Haha. I've been living with construction for like 2 years straight. It never fucking stops. Anyway. Usually game development for the common man was relegated to the PC, but the Neturose brought it to consoles, which was pretty cool. And Vital Shell taps a very specific type of look that Neturose games have, where they're like kind of from a template, like the menus and the color palettes and the fonts. Oh my god, the fonts. The fonts used in the game. Plus some of the character models and stuff are very weird and simple and a little bit a little surreal. Lots of just like faces attached to weird bodies, and it's all white. They look like they're from tech demos. And yeah, the game is, you are a little knight robot guy? I don't know. You're like a knight dude, and you're on a flat stage that the first one is tropical themed, which is cute. And enemies spawn in around you, and you've got a weapon that fires automatically, and you there's an auto aim. You can also manually aim at the if you hold a button down. And you just kind of move around. You've got a quick dodge, and you try not to die. As you kill enemies, they drop experience crystals that you gain to, what is it? You like level up, and then at the end of every, you level up, which I think increases your stats. You've got like 20 stats for some reason. And then at the end of once you finish each stage, you get to choose from an upgrade, which I imagine then scales as you level up. And you can pick different weapons, and the weapons have their own upgrades. And I believe what you get a choice of is just randomized once you finish each stage. I quite enjoy that game. I love Vampire Survivors. You guys know me. I love a good VS. A good Vampire-S game. Is that Vampire Survivor or Saviors? I messed up. I switched the plurals on those. That's interesting. It's Vampire Savior and Survivors. But I said Survivor and Saviors. Anyway. I thought it was cool. It is what it is. If the aesthetic is neat to you and the gameplay sounds fun, check it out. It seemed like a solid one of those. Again, links in the description to all the demos. I had to leave early because I was going to a production of a book called a play called a book of a play, a play of a book. What am I? Called the Screwtape Letters. So the Screwtape Letters is an epistolary novel by C.S. Lewis, best known for the Chronicles of Narnia and Christianity. And it is it's meant to be a collection of letters written by a sort of greater demon tempter in hell to his nephew, who is an agent of the devil who's been sent. He's like this young tempter, and he's been sent on Earth, assigned to corrupt a man, a British man, naturally. I think he's supposed to be British. Oh, no, he is. It takes place in England. They mentioned the bombings in World War II. It takes place during England, originally during World War II, because that's when C.S. Lewis wrote it in 1942, I believe. So the book is just a collection of letters. And the idea is that as you read the idea is it's a neat premise because you're basically getting us one half of a story. So not only is it all told through letters it's sent to someone who the writer of the letters is not writing for an audience. So there is tons of stuff that you have to just pick up through context about, hey, we just talked about literacy and being able to connect ideas. So, for instance, one letter will reference this thing and we'll say, do this, this, and this, and this. And then 2 letters later, there'll be he'll say something else about a similar topic. Like, okay, so it looks like this happened, and you have to compare it to, okay, well then it sounds like his nephew screwed up and he didn't do his job as a tempter. Which is kind of neat. You're experiencing a story, but only via one character's perspective, and he does not care if there is a detached third-person audience observing it. So you might look at that and think, hey, how does that work as a play? And to be honest, I thought that the way that the particular production company handled it was actually really great and really impressive. It is a 1-set, 2-person show for 2 hours. There are 2 actors. The guy who plays Screwtape, the letter writer, and his assistant Toadpipe, who I believe is just, they mentioned they did a little discussion after the production, and the head of the theater company came out and did a little Q&A and gave some extra background info. Apparently Toadpipe is some character who's referenced offhandedly in one of the letters of the book, and they decided to take that character and flesh them out into a full part of the production. But obviously they have no lines, so all Toadpipe does is just pantomime. So they're kind of they use them in a really neat way. Essentially, Screwtape will be maybe walking around doing his sort of theatrical gesticulating and monologuing, or maybe he'll be sitting in his chair and talking, and Toadpipe will be on the other side of the stage, or, themselves wandering around, doing something, mimicking the actions that Screwtape is talking about. And usually Screwtape is dictating the letters to Toadpipe. Toadpipe is the one actually inscribing them. So there's this actually pretty neat, the way they handled it was cool. There's this neat visual interplay between them, where one mostly does speaking and the other one mostly does motions and is very exaggerated and weird and twitchy and stuff like a demon. Other than that, I mean, the guy who played Screwtape was insane. He also played Scar in a production of The Lion King. So the best way I could describe the show was, imagine a 2-hour monologue from Scar, but he's a demon talking about God and the devil and sin and stuff. And I'm gonna be honest, it was great. He did an awesome job and just super impressive. It is genuinely 2 hours of almost unbroken monologue with a couple of... There is never a moment where he's not working. Really, really cool performance. And as for the plot itself, it was interesting for me. I'm not a religious person. I've done a lot of studying of religion. I went to Catholic schools my entire life. So I know a fair amount about Christianity and Catholicism specifically. And I've, interacted with tons of Christians and stuff. So there was a lot that I could understand and references and things that maybe someone who wasn't as familiar might be like, you'd have to maybe fill in the gaps yourself. But one thing that you should know if you read the book, because I think this is not like this is like one production company is doing this show, but it is very much written from the perspective of a guy, C.S. Lewis, who is super Christian. Like, he is adamant that God is real, is active in our lives. The devil is also real to some extent and is active in our lives, and there are positive and negative influences, and God loves us and wants us to be good, and the devil wants to tempt us into sin, and he has certain ideas about what is good and what is sinful. And some of them, honestly, I was actually really pleased with. There is a tendency in Christian media to be kind of lame and self-serving, which is actually something that the Screwtape Letters directly admonishes. Lewis, I get the sense, because he hammers it so much. The greatest sin that Lewis seems to be fixated on talking about and pointing out and pointing out for the audience about how it works in their lives is actually pride. Pride is the way, I like the way that he writes about it. It is this deceptive, it's like the most deceptive, insidious sin. And it's the one that I think he sort of says several times through Screwtape, who, mind you, is a demon, so he talks a certain way, and there is a note from Lewis that was included in the playbill, where he says, like, take everything Screwtape says with a grain of salt, right? Because he's writing from a certain perspective. So you're seeing Lewis's perspective sort of filtered through a character that he believes is literally just fundamentally evil. It is like a force of evil. But the way he talks about pride is like so many, because Screwtape's talking about how awesome it is, essentially, right? About how, you know, this man on Earth might feel a sense of this. So the way it goes is the demon's trying to corrupt him, and this and that happens, and then the man meets a good Christian girl who Screwtape fucking hates. He just thinks she sucks. But her family are, and I know everyone knows exactly what I'm talking about. They are like intellectual Christians, and they are Christian, but they're very smart. You know, they're not dumb Christians. And within that, there is a sense of pride that comes from feeling like, well, I'm doing it. You know, I believe in God because I have reasoned my way into that. And Lewis, to be clear, Lewis was of the mind that believing in a higher power was logical. He did not think that you should use that the fact that you have figured that out to lord that over other people and think that you're better than them. And this whole, oh my God, I actually really love this part where Screwtape is talking about how, you know, try to engender within your client a sense of pride for being so much smarter than, you know, the rubes of his community, the rube Christians of his community. And don't worry, because if he then tries to humble himself, sneak in a little bit of pride, you know, just for being so humble. Which is like, so it's such a specific, oh my, I love like little psychological things like that are pointed out, where you're like, you feel pride welling up, and then you're like, no, I shouldn't feel proud of this. I need to be humble. And then on the back end, you're like, I'm such a good, humble person, though. Look at me. I'm not even proud. So there are several points where Lewis mocks certain types of Christians who behave certain ways, who think themselves better than other people, and, you know, like lay people, for instance, or other Christians. There's a little bit of stuff in there about oh man, I'm trying to rack my brain. This was about a little over a week ago. There's a little bit of stuff about Oh, there's a part where early on when the man is, who you never learn his name. He's not, he's just some, he could be anyone. He's going through what they're calling a religious phase. And they're like, oh, have him go shop around different churches, because different churches do different things, and that they preach different ways. And some of them are Lewis is writing about some pastor some priest he doesn't like. There's one where he's like, oh, there's this one church nearby where the priest he's a total flip-flopper. Like, his politics make no sense. There's another nearby where the priest is like, I forget what it is, but he's calling out certain types of Christians for being like inconsistent or tricking themselves into thinking that they're better and stuff like that. Again, there is a fair amount of like, well, these are 1940s social standards, so some of the ways that I think he writes maybe about women are like, it was the 40s. Not to say that he's super disrespectful, but he is like, there's some interesting stuff about how the devil is the one who is responsible for unfair beauty standards in women. But then also, I don't know what the fuck was going on in England in the 1940s. He's talking about how, the beauty standards change over time, and that the purpose of the reason that demons implement these things is to give men unrealistic standards for women, which will make them unhappy with actual women, and also to make women feel like they can never live up to a certain standard, which is kind of a crazy progressive thing to write in the 1940s. But then also he's like, now the fucking thing that's going on is all the girls want to dress like boys. Which is real. Okay, sure. C.S. Lewis hated tomboys. I don't know if you had pressed him on it. Again, I don't know if it would have been like, he doesn't like, women are sluts, they should all dress like trad wives. Or if it's like, you should dress a certain way for your own, but not to fit, like, you shouldn't be doing it to fit into a beauty stand. I don't know. Like, I don't know what he would have said. Maybe he wrote something about it. That guy was so Christian. I'm sure that C stood for Christian. What did it stand for? It was Clive. He was Anglican? Crazy. Apparently the book is fairly long. It's like a decently long read. I think that the guy, the head of the company, the production company, said that it was like a 6-hour read. Actually, that's not too long. You read like an hour a day. And it sounds pretty interesting. And Lewis was an interesting guy and an interesting writer. He's kind of like the Virgil to Tolkien's Dante. I don't fucking know. On a totally related note, we watched Freddy vs. Jason. Much like, I'm sure C.S. Lewis would have loved Freddy vs. Jason. So this is a movie from 2003. The only reason we watched this is because Kat wanted to see it again. Oh, there was like a Red Letter Media review about it semi-recently. And she was like, I want to watch Freddy vs. Jason because she loved this movie as a kid. For some reason, her parents were like, yeah, you can watch that. There's like tits in the first 2 minutes of the film. And I have never... this is a weird movie to watch. I have never seen... Dude, I almost said Five Nights at Freddy's. Fuck! That is what Nightmare on Elm Street kind of is, though. Five Nightmares with Freddy. They should have put Freddy Fazbear in MK9. I've never seen a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, and I've never seen a Friday the 13th movie. I, of course, know enough about them via osmosis, but I have no reference. I have no frame of reference for, like, I have no taste in them. I have no opinions on them. I am basically just seeing these. The most I know about these characters is honestly from MKX. Jason's got that cool neck snap move that it randomizes the opponent's controls. That's cool. He has, like, the teleport where he appears behind you, like, off the screen. That was cool. Ooh, my schneck. Woo. This movie's awesome. This is just a bunch of bullshit. It's so cool. So, it's a weird combination of things. In 2003, both of these franchises were a little bit passé. They were like pop cultural icons, but not really cool and hip and stuff. Horror was going in a different direction. We were already through the 90s, right? Like, we were well into the period of deconstructions and parodies and stuff. And so, I don't know how this film was received at the time, but it was one of those things like, oh yeah, that's cool. Freddy versus Jason, I know those guys. And not only that, not only is like so there's the context of both of these characters are in a weird spot in 2003. There's also the fact that you got a Hong Kong action movie director, Ronnie Yu, to direct the movie. And you can tell in some of the sequences and some of the editing choices. Some of which are fun, some of which I hate. I absolutely hate. He does that thing with, it's like, I thought it was like digital slow-mo. But apparently it's just you do something really weird with some of the settings of a digital camera. And it's the shutter speed or something like that. I don't know. And it creates this awful looking slow-mo effect that it's a stylistic thing. I think it looks terrible. It looks like a Baz Luhrmann movie. The plot makes almost no sense. Well, okay, it makes okay, it's so weird to talk about the movie and the plot because it's a lot of like things just sort of happen. Things just kind of happen. They're in a place now, things are happening. I could have sworn, watching this film, I thought, okay, these are clearly characters from a previous Nightmare on Elm Street movie. They're grounding it. They got some of the actors back. They're grounding it in something that happened previously, and this is like a light sequel, which is why there's so much exposition. It's to catch people up who haven't seen the previous movie. But it's, using that as a starting point because they're doing so much. All these characters have pre-existing relationships. There's so much exposition. There's multiple flashbacks to things that happen. There's references to things from a previous movie. And then I find out, no, this is not a sequel. None of these characters appeared in anything before this. They are just original to this film, which is super weird. There is an entire Nightmare on Elm Street movie that happened before this one that you never see. You never get to see it. Why? I don't know. But it adds a certain level of... It forces things upon the script that are hilarious. Some of the quotes from this film are like the worst. The exposition is so bad that it wraps back around to being awesome. Like, okay, I'm on the IMDb right now. Hey, so the characters, I'm on the quotes section. Someone asks another character, they're smoking, and they said, hey, Gib, what are you doing? I thought you were going to quit. I only smoke when I drink now, but you're always drinking. Callback to something that doesn't exist. There's another one. There's another one that I remember when the girl is one of the female lead says, "Oh yeah, Dad. Then why is your job that you're the general practitioner at this hospital and you have been for 20 years since my mom died?" It's that bad. It's hilarious. I actually like a lot of things in this movie. I think that if you watch it with just understanding that a bunch of shit's gonna happen that you barely have context for, it gets pretty enjoyable. Like, okay, so clearly, from what you can understand, there's a whole Nightmare on Elm Street movie that happened before where these two characters, these two guys got locked up in a mental institution. And there's this girl that they know that one of them used to date, and stuff starts happening. So the impetus of the film is actually kind of cool. The way that they work Freddy and Jason into the plot together is kind of clever. Basically, because after this previously unseen Elm Street incident, there was a good enough understanding of how the Freddy Krueger curse worked that this hospital, or the government, I guess, locked up everyone who remembered Freddy Krueger. And they're basically keeping them in a mental institution with dream-suppressing drugs until they die, basically. Just isolating the cancer and just letting it die on its own. And Freddy, his powers are getting weaker. So what he does is he needs to bring... there's not enough fear in whatever town they take place in. So he talks to Jason, who is in hell, I think. It's like his spirit. He died in a previous movie. And he's like, Jason, he's pretending to be Jason's mom. And he's like, you gotta go to this town and start killing people. So Jason shows up, starts killing people. Freddy starts to get stronger. But then Jason starts taking all of his kills. He starts kill stealing him. So they get into a rivalry competition, which is where the movie gets really fun. And your perspective characters are these teenagers who are like the two guys at the mental ward. There's this fun little breakout scene. I actually kind of like their actors. Like, the dialogue is hilariously bad, but the way they play them, I think, is surprisingly pretty competent. I ended up kind of rooting for them. There's some good Jason killing spree scenes. There's a really cool one where there's like a party in a cornfield. These kids are having a party in a cornfield, and Jason shows up and they spray some gasoline on him and light him on fire. And he's walking. There's this great shot of him it's an overhead shot, and he's walking through the corn on fire, burning down the corn as he goes, leaving this trail behind him. It's really cool looking. And then he's so, it's so, you can tell the Hong Kong influence because it's just ever so slightly exaggerated. Like, he chops someone and they go fucking flying 20 feet back into a wall and then explode in half. I said slightly exaggerated. It's highly exaggerated. It's not just, they get stabbed like a regular slasher movie. He's doing like, he got like the fucking anime fighting game critical hit effect. He got like the critical counter wire or whatever, where it's like, boom, you get the wall splat. He's doing wall bounce loops on them. Which is, it's really fun. And then at certain points, Freddy is just trying to kill Jason, so he has to pull him into the dream world. There's kind of a neat, I guess, one of the writers, this script went through so many iterations, it was a nightmare. One of the writers made some observation that, it's kind of interesting that Freddy was killed by fire and Jason died by drowning in water. Which then it comes out in one of the best lines of the movie, where the girl says, hang on. Oh my god, how could it not be on the quotes? How could it not be in the quotes section of IMDb? Where the girl says, hang on, Freddy died by fire and Jason died by water. What can we do with that? Which is a really funny way to phrase that. But that's like their respective weaknesses. Freddy is kind of repulsed by flames, and Jason is when he's faced with water, he's because his original sort of death was being drowned because of negligence. It puts him into this, being faced with running water puts him into this like childlike paralysis where he freezes up, and it totally puts him in lockdown mode. At one point, Jason gets pulled into the dream world, and Freddy is doing Mortal Kombat Ermac combos on him with like the teleport, like the telekinetic slam and shit. He literally just bangs him around a bunch of pipes and industrial equipment with cartoon sound effects like bang bong, bing bong, bing bong bong, bang. Pff. It's awesome. There's an awesome scene. Like again, the movie is coherent in a very technical way. Like I basically understand what's going on, but it's so everything feels like it's happening just to happen. It's really hard to describe the feeling of watching the film, but what's happening is really fun. Like at one point they go back to Camp Crystal Lake to, I think, power up Jason or something because it's his home turf, whatever that means. And they're trying to distract Freddy, who is now manifested physically, and he gets absolutely fucking walloped by Jason. It's hilarious. There's some really good, genuinely funny slapstick in this film. And oh man, Kelly Rowland, whatever her name is pronounced, from Destiny's Child, plays one of the characters in here. I guess she was trying to launch an acting career. She is a terrible actress. It's so great. She tries to get Freddy's attention, and Freddy looks over and he goes, dark meat. And then he starts walking over, and then she calls him a homophobic slur. She calls him the F slur, which is really funny. Like, having those two lines back to back with each other the movie is true cinema. It's artistry in motion. Just like a genuinely really stupid as fuck. It's like a kaiju versus movie, just stupid as fuck, but really fun. There was so much potential for this thing to come out poorly, but I kind of love it. I think this was Freddy vs. Jason. I think is a legitimately really fun movie. Not good in a traditional sense, but really funny. On a totally related note, we then watched Finding Nemo. So the weird thing is that Kat's been on this little Pixar kick recently because I don't know why. Sometimes she just gets in these moods. And so that's why we watched The Incredibles. She got a DVD the other day. We found it at a thrift store of all of the Pixar shorts up through, I think, 2007, which was pretty fun. There was a that was the wrong sentence starter for where I'm going next in this discussion. She then was like, oh, I want to watch Finding Nemo. And I said, that's fine. I haven't watched Finding Nemo in years, since I was a really little kid. So I don't have a super strong attachment to it, and I have a bit of a hazy memory. But I remember kind of the basics of the film. And, you know, I enjoyed my rewatch of Toy Story. Oh, we also watched Monsters, Inc. I don't have that much to say about Monsters, Inc. I liked it. I liked the monsters. The first thing we did when we started Finding Nemo was we had to pause it because I went on this tangent about this weird 60 Minutes segment I saw. Because she told me that I had... She told me that to preface, Kat told me that if I talked about Finding Nemo on the podcast, I also had to talk about this story to appease her. Because apparently she thought it was really funny. I was at my grandparents' the other day for dinner, actually after we saw the Screwtape Letters, and they were like, do you want to watch 60 Minutes with us on our Democrat voting television? And my mom and I were like, yeah, sure. I mean, I've enjoyed 60 Minutes. So the first story on 60 Minutes is about it's an interview with Jared Kushner and some other guy who I don't remember who, but it's the two fuckers who worked out like the most recent Gaza ceasefire plan. And I had never like heard what Jared Kushner sounded like. I knew, I'd only ever seen pictures of him. He's like a Nathan Fielder character. He has this like miserable little whelpy energy. The way he talks, I hate him. I want to squash him like a bug. And he's with this other guy whose name I can't remember. He's older than him, but I don't know. He's like Buttman. And they're talking about this fucking thing that happened where they organized the ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. And then within like a day, Israel fired a missile at Hamas again. And in the missile, it was supposed to kill one of the Hamas leaders, but it missed him and it just killed his 16-year-old son. So obviously this is really stressful because as soon as they hear about it, they're like freaking the fuck out. They're calling Trump and they're like, what the fuck? Did you know that was going to happen? What the fuck is going on? It's fuck Israel moment, right? We love shooting missiles. So the next day, they have to go into a meeting with that guy. And it's like, the energy's kind of weird, right? And Buttman is like, hey man, Jared is describing this scene that unfolds. Where he described it as beautiful. He said there was this beautiful moment where Buttman and the Hamas leader, they met, and Buttman said, you and I know about your son. You and we're part of a very unfortunate club. I also lost my son. He overdosed on fentanyl at Harvard College 6 years ago. And I had to sit in a living room with my family and act like that wasn't the craziest shit I'd ever heard. Like, dude, that's not even close to the same thing. That's not even close to the same thing, dude. Like, his son was murdered in a botched political assassination by a country they had just arranged a ceasefire with. And your son fucking partied too hard at Harvard, at an Ivy League school, and died. I'm gonna be on, shame about your son. But I think if I was the Hamas guy, I don't know what I would like fucking shoot him on sight for saying that to me. I would fucking drive him through the wall. What the fuck? I just had to like act like that was normal. That's kind of what Finding Nemo is about. So I mentioned that I had not seen Finding Nemo in a while, and many parts of the film I remembered. But there was many things. I find that some of these early Pixar movies are really fun to go back to because there's a lot of stuff that I just never picked up on as a kid that I've actually find pretty interesting. I don't think Monsters, Inc. has too much of a deeper level, but I think that Finding Nemo has actually got some pretty neat stuff going on because it's a film that largely deals with parents and their children with disabilities, or how people deal with other people who have disabilities. I'm sure you know the basic plot of Finding Nemo. Marlin is a clownfish in the ocean. He has a son named Nemo. His wife and all of the other eggs died in a shark attack, and Nemo was the only one left, so Nemo's very special to him. And he's basically a single father raising a son who has some kind... He has a birth defect where he has a small fin. One of his fins is smaller than usual, which I think is kind of implied to be a result of the shark attack, because when he picks up the last remaining egg, there's a little scratch in the side, which I think is supposed to be there was some kind of damage while Nemo was still forming. So other than that, he is a regular kid. He just has this kind of physical disability. Naturally, Marlin is very protective of Nemo. He is really hesitant about bringing him to his first day of school, which is, they go to fish school. He wants to go with him everywhere. He's really scared to leave him by himself because he can't swim as well as the other kids. He's worried he's going to get bullied. He's worried he's not going to be able to keep up. He tells the manta ray bus driver or whatever to hey, don't worry if you might have to hold up a little bit, and all this stuff is kind of embarrassing to Nemo, who kind of just wants to feel normal. Like, he doesn't want to feel like a weirdo. And the thing is that I've known and been around people like Marlin, parents with children who have some kind of a disability, who are, for good reason, very protective of them, for an understandable reason, right? They have to give their kid a little more help. They have, while they're raising them, they have to, if I knew for a fact that my kid had something that was going to get them bullied, I'd be worried, man. I'd be a little concerned. And getting bullied for having a disability is like one of the most fucked up things, because it's like, I can't even imagine that it's like, it's not, if you get bullied for like your clothes, like something you choose, that's one thing. But just because, you were born a little differently from most other people, it's just such a terrible thing to make someone feel bad about. And the thought of that happening to, if I had a kid, is like, Jesus, that would be, I'd be worried about that. I would be thinking about that. So how do you handle it? And a lot of parents are highly protective. They kind of go into that mama bear mode. So Marlin is struggling to let go of his son and let him be on his own, take his first steps towards independence, which is just spending the day away from him. Naturally, Nemo gets kidnapped by a diver who puts him in an aquarium. It's like a dentist lives in Sydney, Australia. And Marlin goes on this whole quest to save his son, where he almost immediately meets the character Dory, played by the lovely Ellen DeGeneres, who everyone likes all the time. And the thing that I never picked up on is the way that Marlin treats Dory, which is really interesting. Dory has memory issues. She has short-term memory loss, which she tells him almost right off the bat. You can tell her something, and then 5 seconds later, she'll have forgotten about it. Certain key things she'll remember, like her name, but little other things, like maybe how many siblings she has, the exact number she might be hazy on. She forgets directions, she forgets instructions. She just has these gaps in her memory. And you know what? So Dory has what we'd call now an invisible disability. She has something that definitely is like a hurdle that she has to overcome, but it's not a visible thing like Nemo's small fin. It's just a mental thing. And Marlin is so fucking annoyed with Dory. He has such a he gets annoyed with her all the time. Basically, the only reason that he sticks with her is because of happenstance. It's because of, he needs someone to help him out. He needs someone to stick with him. He needs some kind of companionship on this journey. And Dory has a couple of skills that are useful to him, like being able to talk to certain people. She can read, which Marlin can't, which is how they find out where the divers went. For a lot of the movie is him sticking with Dory out of convenience, but he's really like annoyed with her, and he's really short-tempered and frustrated with her. And I think that's really interesting because he would never be that way with Nemo. And it makes you wonder if, like, is it because she doesn't have a physical disability? Like, if she had a short fin or some other kind of, physical abnormality, would he think of her as being like Nemo and be more patient with her because she's like his son? But because it's something that he is personally, like, he doesn't have experience with a type of disability like that, suddenly he is extremely, like, short-tempered and prone to frustration, which is actually, like, a really interesting, I think, realistic depiction of how a lot of people are. And, of course, one of the lessons is him learning to be patient and learn to work with Dory. The same way I'm sure he and other parents had to learn to work with Nemo, right? Like, okay, there are certain things that my son isn't as good at, and I just have to be a little patient. But he wouldn't have applied that to someone that he doesn't have this connection to. So it's a weirdly, I think, kind of nuanced sort of lesson that he has to learn, and moral, which is that to equally apply your values not just to the people you love, but to strangers. And that's kind of interesting. And specifically, I guess in this case, is if we want to be more literal with it, people with disabilities. That, like, just, it's fine. Like, they can't really do anything about it for the most part. You just have to be a little patient, and this is the way things are. This is how we function. This is how we work as a society. And I thought that was neat. I thought that was an interesting lesson. The other weird thing about this film is the movie's ending. So when I was a kid, I must have seen this when I was really little. 7, 8, maybe 9. And, you know, when you're that age, a lot of memories, call me Dory, but a lot of memories get sort of foggy. They get kind of unclear. And so the ending of the movie took me by huge surprise. I'll describe the ending of the film. Spoilers for Finding Nemo. The ending of the movie is Nemo's in the aquarium. Marlin and Dory get there. Marlin and Dory think that Nemo is dead because he's playing dead so that he can get flushed down the toilet. He doesn't know that Marlin and Dory are there and can see him. They get dropped off back at the, like, out pipe of the local sewer treatment center. Nemo gets flushed down the toilet because he successfully played dead, and he ends up at the same place. But Marlin is already on his way home. He's dejected and depressed, and he's on his way home. Nemo meets Dory, jogs her memory. They go try to find Marlin. They meet up again, but they happen to be in a school, right around a school of fish that gets swept up in the net of a fishing boat, including Dory. And they're like, we have to go save her. Nemo goes to, Nemo takes, it's a culmination of all the lessons of the film. It's actually a really nice holistic ending. All the lessons of the film come through. Nemo, while he was in the tank, learned about, it was a group of people that he could learn from, who accepted him. It gave him kind of a place to belong. I also really like the Willem Dafoe fish, who, it was also really positive for Nemo to see someone else who had a disability and was older and was a bit of an example. I really liked Willem Dafoe Fish's sort of little character arc where he gets so excited that Nemo is like this operant that he can use to help escape the tank, that when Nemo's life gets put into danger, he gets like super remorseful and super guilty. And then Nemo says, no, I'm going to take some independence, and I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to break that part of the tank as part of your plan. And he takes the initiative and does something on his own, and he does it. He does it perfectly. And then when the dentist guy tries to scoop Nemo up, all the other fish jump into the net and forcibly like push it down and help Nemo escape from the net. So he uses that lesson. He's like, if all the fish swim downward and stop panicking, if everyone works together, like I learned, we can all swim down and escape maybe. So a couple things are going on. One is Nemo has learned confidence and that he can help inspire people and get people to work together. And that if people work together, they can do more, they can come together to do great things more than they could individually. Marlin has to learn to finally let his son go off and trust him that he's going to be okay. And then he also takes some of Dory's advice, which is her little mantra, where she says, just keep swimming. And at one point, while he's outside of the net, yelling at the fish to all swim down, he starts just naturally, because it makes the most sense, he starts yelling at them to keep swimming and keep swimming. So working together towards a common goal, perseverance, Nemo being on his own, Marlin accepting his son, everything comes together, the net breaks, all the fish are freed, everyone's happy, everyone meets up, they all go back to the great reef, the coral reef, and Nemo goes out on his day of school, and he's a confident boy who can make friends and doesn't feel weird, and he's and Marlin's cool, and he now has a renewed sense of confidence. He's not so scared of the world, which is another sort of flaw that he had to overcome over the course of the film. And Dory is there too. And, the movie wraps up with a nice little bow. It all works. And that's not what I remember watching as a kid. When I was a kid, I think that Finding Nemo was the most stressful movie I had ever watched. Which, I was like 7. But the whole film is just a series of things going wrong. It's just setback after setback after setback, and the characters being in danger, and Nemo being trapped. And I think, like, both of the major settings of the film, the open ocean and the aquarium, are both stressful for different reasons as a child, or both a little stress-inducing. One is just that the ocean is huge, and visually, when you look at that, you're like, fuck, that is just a big open void. And I there's one time where I was out far enough to look down and see the open ocean, and it did, like, give me a sense of vertigo. I don't think I could do scuba diving and stuff. I also can't swim, so I really shouldn't be out there. And the tank is just very claustrophobic feeling. It's literally like being, in a cage. And so both of those were a little stress-inducing to me as a kid as part of watching the movie. And just because it was thing after thing going wrong, I remember them getting to the dentist's office. I remember Marlin and Dory getting to the dentist's office, and just that whole sequence being just absolute chaos. And I don't know why, but for some reason, in my memory, it just snaps to Marlin waking up at the end of the movie and seeing Nemo and stuff. And I remember, and what's so weird about this memory is that it comes with confusion, where I'm like, wait, what happened? When did this happen? And I could have sworn for my entire life that the ending of Finding Nemo was that shit got so crazy that eventually it was like all a nightmare, and Marlin woke up and it was the start of the movie again. And I'm going to be real, at the very, very beginning, there's like the shark attack, and Marlin gets knocked out. And I kid you not, while watching the movie again recently, when that happened, in my mind, I was like, oh yeah, no, that's because we're going to go back to this because it was a dream the whole time. And then that like never happened. And I was watching the movie and I was like, wait, isn't there a sequel with Dory? Huh, isn't there a... I thought... Wait, is she real? Is she supposed to be real? And it's... Like, genuinely, I thought that it was, like, all a dream. Like, the movie itself was so stressful for my child mind that I repressed the memory of the actual ending. And it just came out as this weird, like, I have to wake up from this nightmare. That's the only way that this stressful situation can end, is you just wake up and it was all a dream. Which is really strange in retrospect. Because I remember when Finding Dory came out and being like, wasn't that like all a dream? That's weird. And then I never thought about it because I never saw it. I never heard anyone talk about it. Yeah. Finding Nemo, I actually like the movie quite a bit. It's probably one that I was less interested in, but I actually enjoyed a lot of segments of it. I think visually it was very creative. I think that for most of the movie just taking place in big blue background, there's a lot of interesting visuals and stuff going on. I like the scene where the fish are giving directions, and it's a whole school of little fish, and they keep morphing like the shape into different animals, that their big swarm, their big school into the different shapes. Just visually fun stuff like that to spruce it up a bit. I think that the characters are actually, the main character has a pretty interesting arc, and I definitely could not understand what was really going on thematically as a child. Like the idea that it was about a disability or something. Or how we treat people in our lives with different disabilities and different ways that they manifest, and how maybe different types of disabilities we treat them differently for one reason or another, our own personal biases. I actually think that's pretty cool. And I'm sure that for some, that this was very applicable to certain kids and their families who saw that. And it's got some nice moments. I really like the scene where Marlin, I think it's like, because earlier Nemo asks Marlin how old sea turtles can get, and then later on they meet an actual sea turtle, and he's like, he tells him that he's 150, and then when they finally reunite, one of the things that Marlin is most excited to tell Nemo about is that he met a sea turtle who was 150 years old, and Nemo can't believe it. It's like a really sweet moment. Also kind of neat that it's like a dad movie. It's kind of interesting to have a film aimed at children where the main characters are a dad. I guess Nemo has a lot of screen time, but like the main journey is gone on by a dad and some lady he meets. Some ladyfish. Yeah, Finding Nemo, it actually holds up. I have this whole thing. I think... I don't remember talking about... Did I talk about this before? I think that Pixar movies were at their best when they were all tech demos. Look at the list. I got the list of Pixar films pulled up. And just go one by one and think about what they're like. Okay, yeah, they're trying to tell a story, but they're also pushing technology forward with most of these films. Toy Story, obviously, it's the first fully CG feature-length film. Bug's Life is... I think the main thing with Bug's Life was like level of detail and scale, and like how many things can we fit on screen at once. Toy Story 2 has a lot of the same things. For being their third movie, it looks really good. It looks a lot better than Toy Story 1. Monsters, Inc. was, to me, in my opinion, that was fur. One of the main characters of the movie is a big furry monster. And that was a new thing that they had to figure out how to do. They could barely... Like, the animals in Toy Story 2 look a lot better, but obviously there's a little bit of stylization going on with the way that their fur looks as compared to the first Toy Story, where the dog is just like, it's a texture, and then they apply a weird, like, I don't know, it's like there's like an additional, they do some like weird geometry on the dog to like simulate hairs and stuff. So Monsters, Inc., in my opinion, was like fur technology. Finding Nemo is obviously water. The Incredibles was where they finally got people to look really good. You can say they improved steadily. Like Monsters, Inc. people look a lot better than, you know, their previous movie. The rendering of human beings looks better and better every movie. But The Incredibles was really where you looked at them and you were like, oh, I can picture the 2D concept art. They finally figured out how to handle proportions and textures and lighting in such a way that you could take a drawing and accurately represent it as a three-dimensional character, including like cartoony stylized proportions and, you know, the whole deal. Reinventing, basically figuring out how to do the rules of animation in 3D. Cars, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know, man. I guess just vehicles. They had vehicles and others. I don't know about cars. Ratatouille, I feel like Ratatouille is a confluence of all the things that they had learned at that point. Like the fur technology, the human beings that have like very distinct stylized appearances, the scale of like the environments, as well as the like the swarms of rats and stuff. There's a fair amount of liquid physics that they have to do with like, there's, I mean, so many scenes where they're just making soup, man. And then WALL-E's just a hard ass movie. That's all there is to it. Then there's Up. I haven't seen Up. I know everyone loves it. Toy Story 3, I have seen. I remember thinking it was fine. And then after that is Cars 2, and it's like, here's where they started getting weird. Because once you start going after Cars 2, I get the Disney original movies and the Pixar movies confused sometimes, just because Disney started going CG. I didn't realize Brave was a Pixar movie. I could have sworn that was a Disney thing, because they always use the main character from that in their princess lineup, because, you know, they need diversity. They're starving for diversity. They're like, fuck, we got redheads. We got all these white people, but we need a where the fuck does this take place in? Hang on, who am I being racist towards? We got all these white people. We need some Scots. Monsters University, Inside Out. Inside Out's not bad. Good Dinosaur Finding. This is where they start going sequel overdrive. Onward. Yeah, Lightyear. I think that they were at their best and most consistent when there was like a drive not just to tell the story, but also to push the technology forward. There's kind of an ambitious feeling to their early films where they're doing stuff that hasn't really been done before. And I think that sort of bled over into the whole process. That's my opinion. I think they were at their best. Make more tech demos, Pixar, please. Oh, we finished part 4. We finished Diamond is Unbreakable. That was on the back burner for a while. Because... So, this whole journey of taking Kat through JoJo's Bizarre Adventure has been really interesting from my perspective because of how differently we have fairly different taste. There's a number of things that we can both enjoy, but there's also a lot of things that we are just total polar opposites on. I show her like some of my favorite movies and she's like, what? And she shows me stuff and I'm like, okay. I okay, I'm just sorry to call Katrina out because I know she's listening. She just has like some interesting JoJo opinions. That's what I'll say. So she'll be like, she doesn't like Joseph, which I find really strange because if Kat says something like, dude, this is like Looney Tunes, that means that she likes it. If she goes, dude, this is like Bugs Bunny, that means that she likes it. And Joseph is the most Looney Tunes JoJo. He's like the most Looney Tunes character in the series. He just pulls shit out of thin air. He's like a trickster. He's always like messing with people. He is the most Bugs Bunny character in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And she's like, I don't like him. He's boring. I like Caesar. I like Caesar too. I just think it's crazy to put him over Joseph. A goofy goober. Maybe it's because he's British. I don't know. So when Joseph shows back up in part 4, she's like, oh, this guy again. And I'm like, Joseph, I love you, Joseph. She didn't like Invisible Baby because Joseph, it's a Joseph episode. She went, can you believe the nerve of her? It's interesting for me to go back and revise what my memory was of part 4, just because I don't know, I watched it back in 2017 and I remember it being a little different, just like the order of stuff in my mind. I think actually as a testament to Araki's writing, in my mind I would remember tons and tons of episodes, but I'd be like, oh yeah, there was stuff in between that. And then I would actually look at the episode list, and as we were watching it, I would be like, oh, we're already on that. I remember that. And it was just all stuff I remembered. Like, the whole part is memorable, basically. Like, almost every single fight in that story arc is interesting. Or has some memorable aspect of it. The only one that I think is, like, a little weh is maybe Surface. That's like maybe one of the less memorable ones. But other than that, I think all of them are really like fun and memorable. Also, I, in my mind, split part 4 into 2 chunks, two big halves. And the first one was always, the first half is Red Hot Chili Pepper. And then like immediately after you go into Kira. No, they do Red Hot Chili Pepper. They wrap that storyline up. And then there's just like a chill out period where like we don't even meet Rohan until after Chili Pepper. We meet all of these characters and then Kira shows up earnestly as like a real introduction to the story. They add in a couple foreshadowings of him. They add him in a little bit, some references to him in the anime earlier on. There's some really fun little references. One thing that I picked up on was during the Harvest arc when they are trying to pass off the lottery ticket as their own, and the bank manager says something that freaks all of them out. Josuke, in a shot afterwards, has a very visible bite mark on his lower lip. There's a little like coloring on it because that he's been biting down on it. And I saw that on this this watch through, and I was like, wait, hang on, that's a call forward, I guess, to the Enigma fight when the Teranosuke observes that Josuke has a tell for when he's afraid, and it's that he bites his lip, which at the time in the manga was just something that Araki just wrote for that fight. And it was just something he came up with, and when you read it, you're like, yeah, sure, whatever, he does that. But someone took the time to be like, we should add in a little reference to that beforehand. There's the little detail, and of course, the first time you watch it, it's such a small detail. It's around for like 2 shots. You never would have noticed it, but I really like that. Wonderful David Productions. The second half, like everything after Kira is just straight gas. It is forward momentum. Stuff is happening. All the fights are fun. All the fights are cool. There's great moments in every episode, and it's just back to back to back to back. There's also a ton of Rohan episodes, which I loved. I'm so happy Kat loves Rohan. He's one of my favorite characters in the series. I have a Rohan statue behind me on my bookshelf that is a beautiful sculpt. And I love him. I have a Rohan shirt. I own some of the Thus Spoke Rohan Kishibe manga volumes in hardcover. I have a Rohan at the Louvre. I got it as a, I think, Christmas gift last Christmas. I love Rohan so much. I'm glad that she likes him. Rohan is so fucking funny. He is so funny. He's such a funny character. Like the fucking rock paper scissors kid episode where he just punches this. He goes, all right, he's just sick of this kid's shit. And he goes, all right, rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock! And then he just socks this kid in the face in a public bookstore. And just knocks him out. Hilarious. And in the next episode, Josuke, it's I Am an Alien. And it's when Josuke meets the alien guy who claims to be an alien who can shapeshift. And he's like, hang on, can you turn into dice? And he can. And Josuke's like, I'm gonna go scam the fuck out of Rohan. So he knocks on Rohan's door, and Rohan, not expecting any visitors, answers in his sluttiest attire. It's like this crop top sweater with holes cut out of it, and these big baggy pants that need suspenders because they go so low that his like underwear is showing. And he just answers the door like that. He goes, hello? And then immediately, as soon as he learns what the bet is and the game that they're going to be playing, he's like, I'm going to bankrupt this teenager. Literally, episode 1, punch a child in the face. Episode 2, bankrupt a child. I'm going to clean this kid out. He's going to be jumping off a building. Like, such a funny character. I love him so much. And then you get the I refuse moment. Classic Rohan. Just a petty bitch. He's so awesome. I love him so much. All the stuff with Kira is great. We were both really invested in the whole arc of him taking on Kosaku Kawajiri's identity and blending into his married, like, domestic life. I think it's so funny that Shinobu is like, her husband has turned into like a weird serial killer, but like she finds it hot now. And Hayato is immediately like, that's weird. My mom hates my dad. Why are they having sex? Hayato's such a weirdo. I think he's definitely the inspiration for Tsurugi from part 8, who is a fucking freak. Oh my god. Tsurugi's such a freak in the part 8. I feel like Hayato's the same way. Dude, Kat hated the fucking shower scene. It's the same, like... I believe it's the last child shower scene that Araki ever does. And he clearly does it because it's fucked up and weird and you're supposed to be uncomfortable. She hates the little baby penis that shows up in anime sometimes. She hates the baby penis. I mean, it's not my favorite thing in the world. But... like, we were... she was, like, head in hands during that whole scene with Kira in the bathroom. And she just goes, 0 episodes without incident. Other than that, though, great final half, final third. The action is really fun. I like a lot of the characters. There's tons of great moments. Sheer Heart Attack is such a good fight. It just flew by. We were like I had to leave. I was watching it at her place, and I had to leave, and we were kind of bummed because it's like, fuck, I want to watch more. We had to find like a natural stopping point, and there's only like one. Really, it's after like Highway Star. Because at that point, almost every episode is the second half leads into the next episode. It's just constant cliffhangers, as opposed to sort of previous structure where it's like the fight is contained cleanly in 2 episodes, which is great. It honestly feels a little bit more like the manga, where that's just how the manga works. It's every chapter kind of ends with a cliffhanger, as opposed to a nice little wrap up, which gives part 3 a lot more. I think it actually adds, in retrospect, to the monster of the week feeling of part 3 and why it feels a little repetitive and drawn out at times. Part 3 was also a part where, you know, when I said that there's I imagined in part 4 that there was all this space in between episodes and that didn't happen. That's actually what part 3 is like. I'd be like, oh, I forgot about this one. Oh, I forgot about this one. Oh, I forgot about this one. Hey, Mariah. Yeah, part 4 is a great time. I really, really dig it. I think it's improved it a lot. I think part 4 was never one of my favorites. I always liked it. A lot of parts of the series really come into its own in part 4. In my opinion, everyone's got different parts of JoJo that really appeal specifically to them. For me, that was part 5. Part 5 was where, and I'm really excited to go now watch part 5 with her, because part 5 was where I became like a JoJo super fan. And by contrast, it just sort of made some of the other parts look a little duller in comparison because my enthusiasm for Golden Wind was so high. But on rewatch, I appreciate part 4 a lot. That's been one of the more rewarding things about this whole rewatch process, is that I feel like now that I don't have this sort of pressure that I think some people feel to get through the material, to get to the next thing, I can really like sit and think about Araki's influences and his writing style and some of the themes that are going on. I'm also older now, and I think I'm able to articulate myself better in those terms. And I feel like I just come out with a better appreciation for the material. That's a thing that I think it's a trap that's easy to fall into with the series, which is you're watching it or reading it and you're like, there is a part that you're just really interested in the future. And so you kind of speed read or don't pay as close attention or don't really like enjoy or get into the current thing you're watching. Not necessarily because it's bad, just because you're trying to like, it's like a chore that you have to get over. Yeah, I think JoJo, part 6 suffers from that. Part 6 suffers from a couple things. One thing, in my opinion, is that it's wedged in between 5 and 7. Which hurts 6 a lot, actually, because 6 has some pretty complex themes and character arcs that a lot of people don't really understand or appreciate, which I'd love to talk to when we get around there, because I think Poochie's genuinely a really interesting villain. The more that I've thought about him and kind of gone back to what happens in part 6, the more I appreciate, yeah, I've been using the word appreciate a lot. Let's find a synonym. The more I value, the more I cherish, the more I cherish Poochie. But yeah, I think that there was, on my first reading of part 6, I really didn't get, I kind of got on the surface level what his motivation was and why he was doing what he did and what was going on. But only when I started watching, some of the Hamon Beat analyses of part 6 did I really start to get it. And I think it's actually really fascinating. I think Poochie's a fascinating character and one of the best villains. I think one of the best villains in the series. He's really cool. So I'm excited to get to that. I'm excited to get to that, but I'm also excited to get to, whatever I'm watching at the moment. But yeah, it's an easy trap. It's an easy trap to fall into, and I think it steals some joy out of you when you're watching it, because I think JoJo is such a fun, joyful series about, clever fights and wacky characters and Araki just wearing his influences on his sleeve. It's this really boisterous, exuberant piece of art with so many fascinating influences, and it influences itself, like on pop culture. JoJo's become there's so many things. There's some like thing where you watch enough Japanese media and you realize that everything is a JoJo reference, an Ultraman reference, or a Kinnikuman reference. Or Buddhism, that too. The more you read about Buddhism, the more you realize, oh, that's why this happened in anime. Oh, another thing? In Japanese martial arts, they would just name all of their moves. Like if you were a martial artist or some kind of a soldier or something, when you learned moves, they had like very flowery names. It wasn't just like arm bar or something like that, which I feel like we lean more towards a more technical description of an attack. In Japan, Japanese like samurai would have sword moves that would be like the splitting crane's cry or something like that. Suddenly, a lot of anime and video game stuff makes sense. Also, hey, another thing on the Buddhism aspect. There's this whole... So a while ago, I learned about the concept of what is it? I think dharmic inheritance, which is a concept in Buddhism where a master essentially passes on... Forgive me. And actually, tell me a little bit more about it in the comments if you're more familiar with it. But essentially, it's like the master... Let me just look up what dharma specifically means. The term dharma does not have a single clear translation and conveys a multifaceted idea. Awesome. But it's some kind of like a spiritual sort of metaphysical thing. Like I'm seeing some of the meanings are like, it's your duty, it's your moral responsibility. But there's like a metaphysical aspect to it. And that's something that isn't... So for instance, my namesake, I don't know if I've ever talked about this. My name, Taigen, I am named after a Zen Buddhist monk named Taigen Dan Layton, who is the teacher at the Ancient Dragon Sangha in Chicago, Illinois, whom my parents studied under while they lived there. My mom was into Buddhism for many years of her life, and my dad did it with her. And they named me after him. That is why my name is Taigen, which is a Zen Buddhist name. I think Dan Layton is his birth name, but Taigen is the name that he took, and you basically append it to the beginning of your name. And if you go and like look him up, there's like a list of like, he is the 15th dharmic inheritor of the line of so-and-so. And it goes back to like some 15th century Buddhist monk. And it's this whole like lineage that he is a part of monks who have passed forward this concept of dharma from one down to the next. And I was like, oh, like My Hero Academia. Wait, which is like the dumbest response to have, but it's like, wait, that's how One for All works. It's like this power that gets passed from master to student, and it grows and builds up over time. That's like a Buddhist concept. Huh. Yeah, the more you learn about Buddhism and a couple media properties, the more everything in Japan makes sense. Probably the same thing for a lot of Western stuff, like the Bible, stuff like that. Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings, that's one. Yeah, that's probably a big one. I'm going to gulp some water to wet my throat. Talk about video games I played. So I finished Oddworld, Abe's Oddysee, and my thoughts on the game have not changed too much from when I talked about it in like a sort of mid-game checkpoint that I did last time. I like the game in retro, now having completed it. I like the game. I don't know if I would want to replay it. It is hard as balls, and it pissed me off several times. So, Oddworld is a game that has a lot of friction. It introduces a lot of intentional friction with the player, which, for the most part, I think goes over fine. Namely in the way that Abe controls. He does not feel... excuse me. He does not feel smooth. He basically walks on a grid. Every time you step... You have to get a really good sense for how far he will walk with just one press of a directional button. Many of his actions are very slow, sluggish. There's a lot of recovery on them. A lot of, I guess you'd call it follow through. You often have to do an action and then just be holding the next input you want to do it as quickly as possible. Which becomes a necessity in the parts of the game that I don't really like, which are the occasional high-pressure platforming, I don't know what you'd call it, chase sequences. There's a couple moments where the game is like, you're going to have to run through like a dozen or more screens. And if you fuck up or stop to catch your breath one time, you will die. You need to make it one fluid, constant motion. And you just have to kind of trial and error learn what you need to do and what inputs you need to make. And sometimes, again, the game can be a little finicky. With last time I talked about that super ridiculously tight timing. I don't even know if it was timing or the way that I was doing the input on like how you have to grab the ring and then the dog immediately wakes up and runs towards you. And sometimes if you do it a certain way, you can hop off the ring quickly enough that you can actually run away. But sometimes not. And I'm like, do I have to do it like this or like that? And every single time you die, you have to respawn and do like 4 screens over and over again. And it's the parts of the game that are really tedious that I don't like it's the tedious parts. It's the ones where most of the segment is like, okay, I can figure this out. But then there's like a bit where that constantly keeps killing me. And everything's basically a one-touch kill in this game. And every time I die, I have to do all of this bullshit over again. I have to do it again. And oftentimes it's stuff that just takes a while. And that's what grinds on my gears the most. If I went back and I played this game again, this might be a better game to replay than play the first time. That's an interesting topic. Games that are better on replay than first playthrough. Just recently last episode I talked about Wizardry 8, a game that is fucking maddening the first time you play it, but the second time I'm just like, I just know what to do. And it's way easier. I think Oddworld is probably the same way, because the first time there's so much trial and error involved. And then I imagine if I went back to it, I would be able to kind of jog my memory a lot easier with, this is how you do this is how you do that. Oh, right, that's how you solve this thing. Some things require you to be very specific and learn like how the AI works. Some stuff I really needed to look up a guide. But I think overall I actually quite enjoy the game. I got the bad ending. I think I got like 46 of the Mudokons, and you need 50 for the good ending. So I was like, I'm not gonna do this again. So I just looked up the good ending on YouTube. And, it's Good game. I like it. Cool game. I'm glad it exists. I totally see why people got so into it when it came out and why it has such a cult following. So, Oddworld Abe's Oddysee. Worth playing? I think so. I don't know how new and tasty holds up. I saw some footage of it, and what really threw me off was that it's all... it's a lot more interconnected... How do I describe this? There's not as many like hard transitions between screens. Most things in Abe's Oddysee are... Yeah, basically everything in the game is just boxed in screens with transitions between them. New and tasty joins many of them into larger sections. Something about it looked weird. I don't know if it's actually bad, but maybe I would go back and check that. Also, maybe if it has a different save system, but who knows. A slightly more forgiving save system. But I really like a lot of aspects of this game. I think that learning to work with Abe's movement... Oh, right. This is what I was... Yeah. So learning to work with Abe's movement is actually kind of rewarding. And once you get used to controlling him, it's fine. And I think it fits. Because Abe is... I know I sounded like I was wrapping this up a second ago. Abe is deliberately not... He's not a professional, you know? He's not Leon Kennedy. He's not Super Cop. He's just like a menial slave worker, and he's going around on this crazy adventure. He's going on an Oddysee, which, to be honest, it's not really much of an Oddysee. It's actually the opposite of an Oddysee. No, it's not really. Actually, no. It's someone going home to free his people. Yeah, but I guess the other aspect of an Oddysee is that it's a group, and only one character returns from the initial group. But other than that, it actually does have those parallels. Didn't think of that. Never thought of that. He's going on this crazy adventure. An odd adventure, if you will. A bizarre adventure, mayhaps. And he's not prepared for this. He's just a guy. And so the fact that he controls like that makes sense. And I think that it kind of works in the game's favor. It's some friction that's there for artistic purposes. It just gets really frustrating when you have those really high pressure, lengthy sequences where you got to do all these things in order. And I didn't know that you could run and hit the dedicated crouch button to do a moving roll. I kept crouching in that one part and getting hit and dying because I didn't know that I could just run and hit the crouch button. I thought you had to stop and then crouch down to roll. Fuck me, I guess. It's like if Bob Dylan did an a cappella song, you know? And you're like, no, not that part. No. Don't. It's fine when it's a part of the experience. Don't focus on it. Don't make me deal with that. What else? I like a lot of aspects of the game. I love learning about the world. I love the whole temple thing where you're learning all the abilities, like the mind control for the first time. I like Abe a lot as a character and the whole Modakan culture, all of the implied history that's there. It feels like this really lush world that it takes place on. I really love how communication is it's like a core gameplay mechanic. I kind of wish it went a little further than that. For the most part, it's just hi, follow me, wait here, and then a couple sounds you can make that are basically only function for passwords. And then there's the chant, which is cool. A lot of aspects of this game I think are just really pleasant and charming. I like the environmentalist themes of it. It's nice. Abe's Oddysee. Good game. I would recommend to play it. I don't know if you should play that or the original or new and tasty, but I played the original. And finally, I have started Hades 1. That's right, guys. I don't know if you've heard of this game. It's called Hades from 2020. But I finally got around to it. I'm not the biggest Rogel fan. I do like many roguelike games. It's just not a genre that I'm like, I need to play all of these. But I enjoy quite a few. You know, I have many hours in Risk of Rain 2. I love Vampire Survivors, which has many roguelike elements. More roguelite. And my friends, Hades was on sale for $5 on Steam, and my friends were like, you gotta play it. And I said, okay, but you're gonna be responsible for it, so you are gonna press every button on my phone to pay for the game. You're gonna do it. Click on buy game, click on pay now, click on this, my payment information. You're gonna do all of it. That's gonna be on you. I started playing it. Yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one of those games. If you haven't played Hades by now, I can give you the not on the hype train recommendation that yes, this is a really good roguelite. The light is important because it is a different style. So the one that I have the most, I have a lot of experience with Risk of Rain 2. And Roar 2 is a rogue-like, primarily. It's more on the like than a light. And you ask about what is the distinction, and the main thing, so people have all these arguments about what makes it a light versus a roguelike. The biggest difference is, I would say, meta progression. So, in between runs, do you go back to some kind of a thing where you can upgrade? Do you have upgrades that carry over? Do you have progress that carries over? Do you get progressively... Do you start, over the course of like hours and hours of playing the game, do you start each run progressively, statistically stronger than you did before? That's a rogue light aspect. And Roar 2 definitely has an element of meta progression, but it's not, it's on the softer side as it exists, because it's mostly in the form of content. You'd ever start stronger in Risk of Rain 2? A little bit. There's like the upgrades that you can get, I will say. There's the upgrades that you can get that change certain behaviors, like you get to choose. It's not a random pick out of the boxes. There's some stuff like that. But for the most part, it's a lot heavier on... Every run is basically a clean slate. Most of the stuff that you're unlocking is new items to add to the upgrade pool and new characters. And occasionally, you know, there's one or two things here or there that get introduced. That's the majority of stuff that you're unlocking. You're not starting each run with like, oh, I am 15% faster. My attack speed is way faster. And that's a big distinction because of the structure and how strong they expect you to be, Hades and something like Risk of Rain 2 have very different dynamics with your character's progression over the course of a run. Because every start of Risk of Rain is a clean start, the developers are a lot more comfortable with letting you get broken as fuck. They are comfortable with you getting enough items that you can just absolutely shred. Like, I shoot 1,000,000 bullets per second, and every bullet ricochets between like enemies up to 12 times, and every time it ricochets, it does more damage, and it also heals me every time I deal damage, and I fucking heal off everything, and I also get a shield when I don't get damaged for long enough. So I stand far enough, and then I get a big shield, and then I heal off everything, and I kill everything in 2 seconds. And then the game just starts throwing bigger and bigger and bigger challenges at you, and the power level goes way higher. Hades is like on the other end. Hades expects you to get your power boosts outside of the run. well, for the most part, your consistent power boosts. You have a mirror that you can reflect on. It's very cute, very clever. And that's like your main upgrade tree, where you can spend some of the resources that you get. You've got these gems, or what is it, obsidian, darkness, something like that, that you earn during your runs, and you can spend it to get long-term upgrades. The weapons have upgrades. There are alternate forms of the weapons that you can get with certain rare currencies. What are the other upgrade things? There is like a contractor that you can pay resources, even more resources to add things to the dungeon whenever you go through it. So safe rooms where you can heal up. Stuff like that. You are expected to get a lot of your long-term power from meta progression. And then the in-run upgrades tend to be a little weaker. I don't know, weaker, but the power scale is different. They aren't as permissive with everything synergizes with or synergizes with like a bunch of other stuff, and you can easily make like a super fucked up, really strong build. There's a lot of times in Hades where you just have to pick a boon that isn't. You're like, I don't really like this one. I guess I'll take it. And you have to make compromises and slightly change your build on the fly due to the random aspect of the way that they're doled out. You have these upgrades from each of the Olympian gods and I think a couple other ones, and every time you get one, you get a selection of 3 different boons, which are your upgrades, your items, kind of. There's also things that you can upgrade your main weapon with. Oh, there's a bunch of weapons. There's 5. Yeah, there's 5 weapons, right? There's 6 weapons. There's 6 weapons, and each of them has 4 different forms that you can unlock that change some of their moves. I really only like the more melee-focused ones. I love that spear. I like the gauntlets a lot. I like the sword. The shield is neat. I don't like the bow very much. I really don't like the gun. I do not like that gun. Heaven forbid I do a run with it. Hades forbid I do a run with it. Oh, my neck again. I'm too focused. I'm just staring ahead. So that is kind of the game's candor. Don't expect to get a build every single run where you are broken as shit. Expect to have to work a little bit with what you're given and maybe have to settle sometimes. But you can get a couple upgrades that are really nice throughout the dungeon runs. And when you do get something that feels good, like more AoE, like when I get more AoE on the spear attacks, or I got that, I was playing with the sword and I got the upgrade for the sword that made the special move launch forward as well. So it was like this big leaping AoE strike. And then I got an upgrade from Dionysus that made it deal like a big AoE poison cloud in the area. And then I got a thing that was like you deal was there one that makes you deal more damage while enemies are poisoned enemies, something like that. Just more synergy with stuff. And once you get a good synergy going, it feels so nice. And I really love the aesthetic and the characters. I haven't played or consumed a good Greek myth thing in a little while, so I think everyone thinks Greek myth is pretty cool. And it's nice to have an excuse to go do some wiki diving again about what was this guy's deal? Oh yeah, this is so much interesting. I love ancient myth and lore. Great and endless well to go back to for inspiration for media. I think the idea of having each of the 12 Olympian gods giving you their blessings as sort of the diegetic reason for why you're getting upgrades throughout a dungeon trying to get out of escape the underworld is a great idea. There is so much dialogue in this game. There is so much dialogue. It's crazy. How fucking much did they pay these people to talk into a microphone? Just every single time I respawn, there's like 5 new lines of dialogue I hear. From Zagreus, from the other inhabitants of the underworld who are hanging out in Hades's domain. There's so many conversations that you can have with characters. A lot of it is, I don't care like a super huge deal. So I keep up with what's going on and the big plot things and some of the, the conflicts between the characters, but I've kind of been like, yeah, I'm just only going to read like half of these maybe now. I do like the game quite a bit. It's stealing a fair amount of time from me. Fun game. A lot of the weapons feel good. It runs I think it's nice that there are weapons that I dislike, because that means that other people would probably like them a lot. But yeah, I don't know. Right now, talking about it makes me want to go do another run. I have not beaten Hades. I have not beaten the titular man. I've not killed my dad yet. I've gotten to him, but only I got like halfway through the fight, and then it was too much, and I didn't have enough revives left. But yeah, I don't have too much to add to the Hades conversation. It is just a very, very good roguelite with fun action, good controls. Visually, it's a little messy. It's a little hard to tell what's going on sometimes, but you also kind of learn that it's designed in such a way where a lot of the stuff you don't really have to pay attention to. So you do have to learn how to filter out the visual noise of what's going on and just focus on the area directly around your character for the most part. That's the I guess a tiny complaint I have with it, but it's not super difficult for me to overcome because I'm so good, Yeah, it's a really good roguelite. Tons of content. Tons of gameplay variety, lots of cool upgrades and trinkets and stuff to unlock. I personally find the combat very fun. I wish I didn't have to click quite as much as I do, but it's a good time. It's a good time, and it is definitely worth the money. Maybe I will eventually get to Hades too, but for now, I'm just going to see how far I can get in the original game, and how much stuff I can unlock, because I know there's just a boatload of content in this game. But with that said, I'm going to draw this to a close. If you've been listening this far, thank you for listening to me ramble. If you have a question, feel free to leave it down in the comments below, but please phrase it in the form of a question, because I'm not just going to read your thoughts out loud. I am knee-deep in research for my next video. I'm having a ton of fun researching it. I think it's a really fun topic. And I'm excited to get to the actual writing and editing stage. I've just been taking copious amounts of notes. I just keep finding more and more stuff to talk about and more sources, and it's been a total blast. A piece of history I haven't been super familiar with, and it's just been a really fun to learn. Learning is actually fun. Learning's fun and cool. I hope you learned something today from me or something else. Yeah, other than that, check out my Patreon, check out my Ko-fi. I'd like to make a video on the side channel sometime this century again. You can check that out, I guess. And watch the latest video about the weird Michael Jordan game on the main channel. And bye.